everyone, Danny here. I hope everyone is staying safe and well during the time of this global pandemic or its aftermath. But here in the Philippines, we're still in the middle of it, so I hope everyone is staying safe and staying strong. But while we're all spending quite a bit of time at home, I recently took the opportunity to sign up for the global training program of the Climate Reality Project, an educational platform by former US Vice President Al Gore that seeks to create climate reality leaders, turning our passion into action. And one of the learning exercises that we did for the training was to craft our own climate stories. And in line with today being the Global Day of Action for the Climate, I wanted to share an already condensed version of mine with you. I trimmed it, but it's still long because if you know me, you know I don't know how to keep things short and sweet. But I do hope that you stay tuned till the end, though I'd be grateful for whatever part you get to hear, and hopefully we can have a conversation about it afterwards. So here goes. The title of my climate story is The Ringing That We Share. As a kid who grew up in the city, I got my first glimpse of nature on family road trips, when our car would creep farther and farther away from the urban jungle and deeper into the forests of the mountains or the vast farmlands of the provinces that my parents grew up in. Both my parents were raised on farms, helping their parents and grandparents take care of our earth, so it would, in turn, take care of them. They witnessed the close relationships their elders had with the animals, especially the carabao, which we in the Philippines call the farmer's best friend. They would even tell me stories about crossing streams and encountering wildlife, from big lizards to snakes, on their walks to and from school. Having grown up in the beauty and service of nature, they learned to deeply appreciate and love it. And they've carried this love for nature around with them, even as their jobs and lives took them to the city, where they met and later on had me. I remember sitting on my mom's or dad's lap and looking out the car window to the scenery they'd be pointing at. They tell me to look carefully and appreciate deeply what I was seeing and hearing. The lush tree cover, the bird song, because one day these views and sounds may cease to exist. I remember them wondering aloud if my grandchildren would live to see it. So, you see, the love for the environment was passed on in my family, from my great grandparents to my grandparents to my parents to me. Among my friends, I am notorious for being emotional to the point of tears over something as simple as a beautiful sunrise or sunset. This world, our shared home, is so beautiful that loving it really isn't hard to do. It isn't just about beauty, though. There is something sacred, something solemn, something profound in nature that transcends words, especially in its most quiet moments and spaces. The peak of a mountain, for instance. Peter Mathiasen put it perfectly when he said, I ring with life, and the mountains ring, and when I can hear it, there's a ringing that we share. I understand all this not in my mind, but in my heart. There is a ringing that we share. There is so much noise and chaos in the world, but in nature we can still find the sense of harmony weaved with respect and love. In the climate movement, we often hear the sentence, our solutions are in nature. And this is true in this sense too. Nature offers us this model of harmony that we humans have so much to learn from. For we have our differences, a lot of differences, but we all need to center ourselves on the core truth that we all still share this one home, one Mother Earth. Human existence, our existence, has been but a blip in the grand timeline of the universe, and yet all of nature has been entrusted to us to take care of. A responsibility that we've been carrying out quite poorly. As every year continues to be the hottest recorded year in history, as our sea levels rise and floods from extreme rainfall events become more frequent, as our lands are stripped of forest cover and our indigenous communities are driven out of their homes, their leaders killed in the interests of big corporations, as our oceans and marine life are choked up with plastic and now dolomite, I can't help but ponder the same question that my parents did. Will my grandchildren live to see the beauty of this planet? And then another question arises from a heart that has always loved kids. In a world that seems to face a future so bleak, is it still right for me to bring a child into it? I don't know the definite answers to these questions yet, but what I do know is we must do everything we can so we can all answer with a resounding yes. And yet, despite having said that, even this trope of worrying about our children and grandchildren is flawed, because the climate crisis is here, it's happening now. In the destruction that we've witnessed this year, which we've all been paying more attention to, climate activist and writer Mary Hegler accurately said, "I don't need a time machine to see climate change. I only need a window." When I was a kid, I'd look out the car window and see lush tree cover over our land. This year, if you looked out the window in Australia or the US West Coast, you'd see wildfire. Here in the Philippines, too often, year after year, we've looked out the window and seen flooded cities costing not only the destruction of property, but lives. We are watching our world destroyed, and we cannot simply sit back and, as Al Gore put it, wait for some genius to come up with some miracle. We must do our part. In the wake of this global crisis, our conversations are circling around recovering from this horrible year and quote unquote going back to normal. But what we fail to realize is that this cycle of droughts and floods and pandemics is the new normal unless we do something about it. To again borrow from the words of Al Gore, we must take this excruciatingly painful experience and translate it to change. Policy change in particular, for while we must always do our best as individuals, without systemic institutional change, we cannot succeed in winning this climate crisis, or any crisis for that matter. We must demand more from ourselves. We must demand more from our institutions, from our industries, from our systems, from our government. We must take this creed of building back better to heart. For despite the negative impacts of climate change and the destruction we've already witnessed, we do have a fighting chance because the solutions exist. From reforestation and conservation projects to designing low-carbon, energy-efficient buildings and cities to utilizing renewable energy and green infrastructure, these solutions benefit not only the environment but our societies and human quality of life as well. There is so much hope. Al Gore even went so far as to say, "We know the ending. We're gonna win this. But we have to put the work in. It is our responsibility." As one of my favorite quotes about the environment goes, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. For our children, for our planet, for our home, for our future, we must listen. We must listen to this ringing machine." Thank you so much for tuning in if you made it here to the end. If any of that interested or alarmed you, I did touch on a few topics I'll be passingly, such as the impacts of the climate crisis as well as the solutions. If you'd like to learn more, I'll be sharing a lot more about it in the coming days and weeks with my fellow climate reality leaders as we gear up for 24 Hours of Reality on October 11th. I really would love to hear what interests you, what evidence you'd like to see, what you'd like to learn more about, so please don't hesitate to leave a comment or send me a message, and I hope to talk to you guys in those conversations, and I really do hope to see you all in the better, brighter day soon. But for now, stay safe. Bye. This year's Global Day of Action for the Climate is centered around the theme of climate injustice. So fight climate injustice because there is no planet B and we're all in this together despite not being on the same boat. Okay, that's all for now. Bye.